supposed to be doing. They're not keeping our loved ones safe.
Families of inmates at a federal prison in Beaumont protest for safer conditions for loved ones amid the COVID-19 pandemic. What they want from people running the prison. And lawmakers on Capitol Hill trying to hammer out a new stimulus package. Where they stand now, and will there be a recess before there's a deal?
Splashdown.
Mission accomplished. Astronauts from SpaceX Crew Dragon safely back on Earth following a historic mission. With these astronauts accomplished that no others have before.
It's a quiet end to the weekend here in Southeast Texas. Get ready for more sunshine as we head into a new week.
Fox 4 News at 9 starts now.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rocio de la Fe. Tonight, we're following up on a special report we brought you about the federal prison in Beaumont and why family members of inmates say prison officials are not doing enough to keep their loved ones safe as more inmates test positive for COVID-19. Those families took part in a protest, and Fox 4's Paige Hubbard was on site as they called on prison officials to take action.
Outside of Beaumont's federal prison, these families united with one goal in mind.
Separate the men! Separate the men!
To demand safe conditions for their loved ones whose lives they say are in danger because of the rapid increase of COVID-19 cases amongst inmates.
We're not out here saying let them go. We understand they broke laws and committed crimes. We understand that. That's not what we're saying. We're saying nonviolent crimes do not equal death sentence. That's what we're saying.
The U.S. Attorney's Office issued a directive to federal prisons to release nonviolent inmates who are vulnerable. The office says they should be released into home confinement.
COVID is being brought in, and it's been brought in apparently by the guards. We hadn't been here since January. The numbers are increasing. They're not giving them proper PPE.
Wendy Williams says those are just some of the conditions inmates are facing at the Federal Correctional Complex in Beaumont. She says she's also in a battle with the prison because her fiance was supposed to be released in June. But due to COVID-19, his release has been delayed, and Williams says she hasn't gotten a word on his new release date.
They're not giving hot meals. It's a lot. They're not having showers for weeks at a time, sometimes no commissary.
Protesters held signs that echoed their frustrations about conditions they believe put their loved ones' lives in danger. Those protesting say inmates who tested positive for COVID-19 are being housed with others who tested negative for the virus.
It's impossible to keep them socially distanced when they're in a prison that's already grossly overcrowded. And a solution to that would be to send them home on home confinement. To send them home on emergency furlough. They have the power to do this, and yet they choose to take no action.
This woman who organized the protest says she didn't want to share her name out of fear that her loved one would face retaliation. But she says that's not going to stop her from advocating for him.
They have hardly any access to sanitizer, soap. The list goes on and on.
Patty Stockman, wife of former Congressman Steve Stockman, says her husband tested positive for the virus at the prison and was denied adequate medical care. She says after a KFDM News report that brought attention to conditions inmates face, her husband was then able to get proper medical treatment.
The other men aren't being taken to the hospital. They're not getting medical attention. They're not getting medicines. And it's just outrageous.
Stockman says she hopes other inmates will also get the medical attention they need. Other families share that same hope that their voices will help bring change. In Beaumont, Paige Hubbard, Fox 4, working for you.
Well, wrapping up our second half of the weekend, Fox 4 meteorologist Chad Sean will join us now with a first look at the forecast. Hey, Chad.
Well, good evening to you, Rocio, and good evening, everybody out there. As we push through the 9 o'clock hour, we're looking at our live weather network camera brought to you by Do Good and Crown Electric. Looking out over Mid-County, still a little bit of traffic out there this evening. For most of us, the rain managed to escape us today, so that's good news. 94 degrees, a high temperature on our Markey Basket weather net at Hillcrest Elementary in Nederland. We're looking at light southeasterly winds right now, and our barometric pressure is at 29.90, holding steady. Satellite imagery over the last 6 hours. A couple of showers did manage to push into portions of Tyler County late this afternoon, early this evening, but for the most part, they kind of fizzled out once we lost some of the heating of the day. We'll look for skies to continue to clear out as we head throughout the evening. bringing back plenty of sunshine again for the early part of the week. Still watching the tropics. Tropical storm Isaias moving off towards the northwest, still offshore, so that's good news, but it is maybe going to be a hurricane. Still a little bit up in the air. Allergy report today, moderate levels of weed and mold spores. Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll talk about your forecast as we head back to work on Monday. Looks like the first week of August is going to stay fairly warm. Rocio?
Thanks, Chad. Well, if you haven't had time yet to register your child for school at Beaumont ISD, don't fret. You still have 2 more weeks to get it done. You can register your child for school up until the start of the new school year, which is August 17th. Again, you have until school starts to complete that registration process. In other school news, the Toccoa Academy of Accelerated Studies will host a drive-up registration event tomorrow for pre-K students who are ages 3 to 4. And drive-up registration will take place at campuses in Port Arthur and Orange. Classes there start on September 8th. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of a mass shooting at an El Paso Walmart that claimed the lives of 23 people. It will be 1 year since a gunman stormed the store. Loved ones remember the victims with a candlelight vigil. Investigators say the deadly shooting was racially motivated. The gunman faces capital murder charges. If convicted, he will likely face the death penalty. Protesters in the state's capital clashed with police in front of a memorial for a man who was killed when attending a Black Lives Matter rally. Protesters were out to honor Garrett Foster, who was shot exactly 1 week ago by an active duty soldier who was driving for a ride-sharing company. Foster was openly carrying an AK-47 rifle when he was shot and killed by U.S. Army Sergeant Daniel Perry when he approached Perry's vehicle. House lawmakers have received word from a Majority Leader Steny Hoyer that they won't be going home to their districts for the usual August recess until the lower chamber reaches a deal with the Senate and the White House on various forms of coronavirus spending, including unemployment insurance benefits that recently dried up. St. Clair National Correspondent James Rosen reports.
President Trump returned to the White House from a Virginia golf outing Sunday afternoon without even the rudimentary outlines of a deal with congressional Democrats in place to extend unemployment benefits and provide other relief funds as the coronavirus pandemic stretches on. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows is one of the president's lead negotiators.
Our staffs are actually working today. We'll be meeting again tomorrow, but I'm not optimistic that there will be a solution in the very near term.
President Trump blames House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer for rejecting the various proposals he has put forward.
The Democrats view this as a political thing. They view it for November 3rd, and we don't do it that way. We're doing the right thing. So we want to get the money out. It's a lot of money, and we want to get it done.
Pelosi, however, pointed out that the White House and GOP lawmakers have disagreed among themselves over whether to extend the $600 a week in jobless benefits that had helped sustain an estimated 30 million Americans and which expired on Friday.
We are unified in our support for the $600. They are in disarray on many of their members in the Senate. Republican members don't want any addition.
Still, Pelosi and Schumer insist on bundling the unemployment insurance with other items that are complete non-starters for the Republicans.
The Democrats right now are insisting on over $1 trillion to the state and local governments. That's something that we're not going to do to bail out those states that had financial issues. Mark Meadows and I will be back there every day until we reach an agreement.
Separately, Speaker Pelosi said she lacks confidence in Ambassador Deborah Birx, the widely respected coordinator of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. Pelosi said the president spreads misinformation about the virus and that Birx is, quote, his appointee. Reporting from Chesapeake Bay, Maryland, James Rosen.
In other news, the COVID-19 pandemic has some people who suffered a financial loss waiting hours to pick up food from a food bank. Meanwhile, many hospitals are hitting their capacity limits and schools are dealing with positive cases. The surge has many community leaders and doctors pleading for a national strategy to tackle COVID-19. Here's a report.
California, once the role model for flattening the curve, has become a coronavirus hotspot. Much of the state showing dark red as California's Department of Public Health announced its highest number yet of COVID-related deaths. That number, 219 in a single day. Since the pandemic started, more than 9,000 people in California have died from COVID-related complications.
it's very frustrating as an epidemiologist to see these case numbers continuing to rise without a national strategy, without adequate testing, without contact tracing as we need it. All of the things that we've been talking about for months and months. And these numbers are going to continue to go up until we do have these things in place.
People struggling financially in Los Angeles waited in line for 7 hours on Saturday at a food bank.
It's surreal to see, that many people standing in this line for food, and it's really a larger indictment of a failed system and the ability of the federal government to take care of the people, because at the end of the day, it's unconscionable to live in a world where people have to wait for 7 hours for a box of groceries.
Florida reported 9,000 plus cases for a fifth consecutive day on Saturday. And in Texas, the city of McAllen's convention center is being converted into a healthcare facility to help meet hospital capacity needs in the hard-hit southern part of the state. A new CDC report on how quickly children transmitted the virus at a summer camp in Georgia came out as schools are starting to reopen across the country. A Mississippi high school student tested positive for coronavirus during the first week of classes, according to Corinth School District's social media posts. In Indiana last week, the Hancock County Health Department notified Greenfield Central Junior High School that one of their students who had attended part of the school day tested positive for COVID-19, the superintendent told parents in a letter. And a staff member at Avon High School in Indiana tested positive for COVID-19 but had not been at school this past week.
The safest way to open schools is to decrease community transmission. The Achilles heel of our whole national effort has been the lack of testing capacity. We are not doing nearly the amount of tests we need to do on a daily basis, probably about anywhere from 1 to 3 million tests a day. We're under 1 million.
The coronavirus spreads again on Capitol Hill. Arizona Democratic Representative Raul Grijalva has tested positive for the coronavirus, his office confirmed on Saturday. In a statement Saturday, Grijalva slammed Republicans who don't wear masks in the building, citing the events of the week. Most of the U.S. is now in the red zone, and in July, the U.S. saw 10 days where COVID deaths surpassed 1,000. The CDC now projecting more than 173,000 U.S. deaths by August 22nd.
Still had a historic mission accomplished. Astronauts from SpaceX's Crew Dragon safely back on Earth following a historic mission. What these astronauts accomplished that no others have before them. And a teenager loses both of his parents due to COVID-19, who he says they taught him that gives him strength during this time. You're watching Fox 4 News.
And with plenty of sunshine expected the next couple of days, we'll be looking at a steamy start